Tonight on BCN Weekly News. In this week's special report, student housing updates regarding mold. Also, student frustrations with DAS, as well as how icy conditions around campus are affecting students. All of this and more coming up soon tonight on BCN Weekly News.
Live from BCNR's studio in Berea, Kentucky, this is BCN Weekly News.
Good evening and welcome back to another newscast of BCN Weekly News. My name is Jessica Powell. Students had concerns with mold in their Eco Village apartments, as well as the fire in the home management house. Here's Izzy with more on that.
In the past fall semester, some students experienced disruptions to their residential lives on campus. Here's some updates on those situations. On November 7th of last year, a stovetop grease fire triggered the sprinkler system in the Harrison McLean Home Management House, a living learning option for those participating in the Child and Family Studies major. The building has a full kitchen that is utilized in CFS courses. The fire, as reported in the President's newsletter from November of that year, was caused by cooking. As detailed in the President's newsletter from December of 2025, students were relocated to Kentucky Talcott the day of the incident. We had the chance to speak with a student who at the time was the RA for home management and since has resigned from that position.
So on November 7th, I was in the BCC and I was working on some homework, I think, but I got a Teams message from my residents and they let me know that there was a fire in the house. And so I pack up everything, forgot to do my work and everything, and I go to check it out. They had stopped the fire. It was in the kitchen. It was a grease fire started by 3 students in the class. Those students did not live in the house. That was one of the main things, one of the main rumors that went around after. A lot of the residents were not in the house. There was one resident in the house during the fire that actually helped one of the students. There was a lot of smoke as well. Windows were opened. It could have been prevented. There was a lot of preventative measures that were ignored at that time. But ultimately, it didn't work out, and so our kitchen was destroyed. So moving out was pretty difficult. That day, it was actually raining and very, very cold. So we were told to gather a few items, maybe like a weekend bag almost of items that could just get us through. And we were transported to KTAL. So our process of getting things was a bit tricky. We had to call public safety every time we wanted to go in and out of the house. We had to basically be escorted into our house. There was an instance of some of my girls thought they were being watched too closely, so they didn't pack enough things, so they had to make multiple trips because, you know, as a woman, you don't really want a male officer to be seeing your like undergarments and things like that, which is understandable, but we're in the house. There's no immediate threat. There wasn't even smoke in my room, and I was directly above the kitchen. So there's no reason for an officer to fear for my safety in my room and be watching that closely as I pack my bags. While being in KTAL the rest of like that week, nobody was notified that we were in there, including the pro staff, Brittany, and her RAs. So they were a bit rude. I'm not gonna say all of them, but there was 1 to 2 that were kind of rude upon our arrival, including some of the residents weren't very welcoming because they were not notified that we were there. So I can't blame them. Because of the miscommunication with housing and student life and everything interconnected, there was a lot of challenges and tension for the aftermath of the residents. As RA, I was advocating so much to the point where I know they were tired of me because it showed. They stopped replying to emails. They were secretive about only replying to me. they didn't communicate certain things. Like I've asked multiple times, do you think we'll be back in the house or should we just do a full move out? They never wanted to answer that clearly, and we're still not in the house. We're all displaced still. One of the things I was most focused on was like the safety and security of my residents at the time. And so I pushed for them to either have their room structures back, because a lot of us in the house, we applied to be there. We had single rooms or doubles, and some people, you know, when we got displaced, I was put with a random roommate as a RA, and they were put just wherever because no one wanted to be in K-Town. It wasn't the ideal community for some people. I had to advocate for weekly updates, and that's why I say we haven't been updated since. We did get about maybe 2 weeks worth of updates, but with the breaks and other things, we kind of showed them grace, even though they could get the most work done during there. They didn't. And I emailed 2 weeks ago at the start of this semester, and I told them, like, I know I have left RA at this point, but I would still love weekly updates, and I CC'd all my previous residents on that email. But I specifically told the staff to reply all to that email so that me and my residents would all be in the loop about any updates with the house, and if we'll need to do a full move out, or if we would be coming back even late March if it was, or even beginning of May if it was. Like, we just want to know.
We reached out to Berea College Housing for a comment, and Dr. Christina Gamble, the Associate Vice President for Student Life, responded. Regarding the home management house update, they said, members of the home management house community were notified on Thursday, February 5th, that following an extensive facilities and safety assessment, the home management house will remain temporarily closed until further notice. Further down, they say residents have been invited to meet individually with members of the Residence Life team to discuss housing-related needs and next steps, including retrieving personal belongings. In response to this, Paris said, I saw Frank a night before this email and told him that I had been waiting for 3 weeks on our promised updates. He assured that they, him, and Student Life, Hannah Tolliver, Melissa Wills, were drafting the email and said it would be sent before 5 p.m. She goes on to say, I told Dr. Frank that I would be sending an email at 5 p.m. if they did not send it. It hit 5 p.m. yesterday and my email was sent. Then they decided to move the release time. My initial reaction was disappointment. I knew that admin knew, but I was surprised that SGA knew 2 to 3 weeks ago that we wouldn't be coming back this term, but no one from admin wanted to release the information to us residents even when prompted 3 weeks ago. We'll keep you updated as this story progresses. Another residence issue being addressed by the college is reported mold with some eco-village housing units. This concern was raised by students on October 9th of last year during the General Assembly. Per the November newsletter, professional mitigation has been completed. Dehumidifiers and air purifiers have been placed in affected areas. Per the December newsletter, HEPA filter air purifiers and dehumidifiers were installed in all units. Professional air duct cleaning was serviced, and professional air testing and indoor air quality assessments were completed. The results of those tests were projected to be received by December 10th of last year. In this newsletter, the college also announced plans to begin remediation and general repairs in the spring of 2026. However, some students have felt that the college is not being transparent with this issue. One Eco Village resident shared their experiences.
I was moved into Eco Village in the fall. And shortly after moving in, there were some things that I started to kind of slowly notice. Sort of like a certain smell in the air, a sort of like musty sort of smell, and then splotchiness around the air vents and things like that. So I put in work orders for those things. I was left like yellow tags that said like, we tested the humidity in your apartment, everything looks fine. I reached out to the person who's kind of in charge of Eco Village to seek her assistance with that, and didn't really get a response. In fact, I think I got an email that said something like, I won't be responding to these concerns, bring them directly to administration. My personal experience was just that I started to notice more and more of this after living there for a time. And then it got to a point where I left town for a weekend, and my stuff in my bag that I had, once I was removed from my apartment setting, I really could notice like all my clothes smelled like mildewy. So that was like the first time it really kind of hit me how bad it might be in my apartment. If I had gone kind of nose blind to this from living there, but then out of context, my things were very obviously contaminated. The other big thing is that when I returned home, I checked behind my furniture because another student had mentioned that sometimes that's where mold grows, and found a huge, like, patchy, gross looking section of mold. I had FM come in after putting in a work order for that, and they told me over the phone that it wasn't mold, it was just dirt. So I went to the hardware store, and with my own money I bought a mold testing kit, and I swabbed it and sent it off to a lab, and it came back positive for a couple different kinds of actively sporing mold, which just means that it's still, kind of alive and spreading. Had to move into a different housing option temporarily just to get out of there because I had begun to get quite sick. I had this ongoing cough that was not resolving. And I started to suspect that perhaps the mold was causing it after reading about some of the side effects that mold exposure can have. I was moved temporarily into Elizabeth Rogers. And after that, I just had to start really going through all my stuff and figuring out what was realistic to keep. Most of my clothes I could wash with vinegar, and that kind of got rid of the smell, but I had some bigger pieces of furniture, pillows, things like that I just couldn't realistically wash, and that very much had that smell on them that I had to throw away. Very dear art to me that my friends had made either for me or just something they'd gifted me. So reading online, you really can't salvage paper that's grown mold realistically, so that was stuff I had to get rid of, which just can't put a price tag on that kind of thing. So I definitely went through a period of pretty extreme anxiety in response to this because I felt like kind of everything I owned was sort of contaminated. Yeah, I got a pretty good deal in comparison to what others were offered. We were temporarily given the faculty apartment in Elizabeth Rogers, so that worked for me and my roommate, but other people were offered traditional dorms or even moved into dorms where they then found more mold. There was the approach to it felt sort of like they were trying to kind of put these small band-aids on individual people's problems rather than looking at the bigger issue. So often what would happen, you would report mold and someone from FM would come with a Clorox wipe and just wipe off the visible mold, which is not a super effective way to get rid of mold. Bleach can kill it, but it can also just sort of bleach the, not fibers, but sort of the tendrils of it, so it's just not visible anymore, but it may still be there. Yeah, and of course, I mentioned my experience of being told that what I saw wasn't mold, so I think there was a fair bit of what we can call gaslighting going on, whether intentional or not. It was just very isolating, the way that it was dealt with prior to us raising it up as a bigger issue. We, a group of us, primarily from Eco Village, but some other students along the way, weren't happy with how we were being treated or how these things were being addressed. So we put together a list of demands and brought it to the General Assembly, I believe in October, and asked that they perform comprehensive mold testing And one of our big points was that testing be released to us with full transparency. The GA also voted on that. They passed a motion sort of ordering the administration to do that. And the GA is an equal body next to like the administrative office. So they started with, I'm sure you may have heard of their like 4-phase plan that they've put into action. So there are some things they've done, right? They've done the testing. They've done the some preventative measures with dehumidifiers, and told us in an Eco-Village meeting 2 nights ago, an Eco-Village update meeting, is that they would not be releasing the results of the test done on our apartments. We asked for some further clarification about why there was none given. The answer was essentially, we're not going to release the results because we're not going to, and we're going to focus on moving forward. A lot of us living in Eco-Village feel that that's not adequate. You know, we asked for this very specific thing. The GA ordered this very specific thing. And when the administration is trying to rebuild trust with us, as they say they are, when they won't release those files to the residents, it feels like they're hiding something from us. And how are we supposed to trust them after we fought so hard to just have this stuff looked at seriously, and then we're not given the results of that, and that we're just supposed to say, okay, yeah, we trust you to do that remediation. We don't need to know what was in there. Several of us got sick from the exposure, so that's stuff that we'd like to provide our physicians with so that they can know the full scope of like what exactly we were exposed to. There's many, like millions of strains of mold, so it's good for healthcare providers to be able to zero in on exposures and what it was and things like that. There's children in Eco-Village, so mold exposure can be especially dangerous to children. So that's really, really important in that case as well. And it's just a transparency thing and a trust rebuilding thing. You know, we need to know that they really heard us and that they value us as students and as non-traditional students, to want us to live in safe conditions and want us to like know full well what conditions we're living in so that we can make the best decisions for ourselves or our families.
In their email, they restated the 4-phase plan that was mentioned by both Dr. Nixon and Dr. Cerrone, adding that repair and remediation work is scheduled to begin on Monday, February 9th, starting with 8 unoccupied units. To note, the information shared by Dr. Frank Cerrone, the Vice President of Student Life at Convocation, includes the 4 phases detailed within the President's newsletter from December, as well as scheduling work such as new sealants, new coats of primer and paint, replacing drywall when necessary, replacements of HVAC and bathroom exhaust fans, new humidistats to provide information to facilities management of temperature in the units, as well as a new process of submitting maintenance work within residence halls and units. These are developing stories, and BCNR will keep you updated as they unfold. For BCN Weekly Report, I'm Izzy Spence.
Thanks, Izzy. In other news, students have had recent frustrations with DAS. Here is Quinn with more on that.
DAS provides services to the Berea College community to ensure that students with disabilities have equal access to all aspects of college life, and DAS works towards making program services and activities accessible for all students. However, several students have voiced concerns stating that DAS's level of assistance isn't as high as it should be. One student filed for academic accommodations for their ADHD, depression, and anxiety. The student sent in the proper paperwork for the ADHD, and it was confirmed. However, accommodations for the student's depression and anxiety were not given, and allegedly, DAS told the student that using their accommodation for anything other than the student's ADHD would be improper use of said accommodations. I then spoke to another student who gave her experiences with DAS.
The experience with getting housing was incredibly complicated. I actually did not get accommodations that I needed for my housing until my junior year, which was this year. My first year, I was put on a 4th floor, which was horrible when the elevator went out. In my second semester, I was actually completely not able to have access to my room because the elevator broke and was broken for multiple days, and I had to be moved to a different residence hall to stay, and that was not handled very well by my OC. And then my second year, I tried to get housing accommodations and was put on the second floor with the promise that I could be moved down to the first floor in that same residence hall. However, nobody ever reached back out to me about getting that process moving. And then I found out that the first floor was an all men's floor, so I wouldn't have been able to get there. But I wish I had been informed by DAS so that I would have been able to work with them getting into a different residence hall so I could be put on the first floor. With getting my accommodations to get out of the swim class, I was told that was very difficult to have accommodations for. I was told that writing a personal statement about how my disability affected me would play a big role in being able to get out of the swim class. It wasn't required. That was stressed that it was not required, but it was heavily pushed that you did write it. And it felt almost gross in a way, having to lay that out for somebody and be told it wouldn't be guaranteed. But that is a major issue, is getting updates from DAS. I have to be very proactive.
DAS responded, "What we can share is that accommodations are determined through an interactive process that is individual to every student's own circumstances. That process is designed to determine eligibility and provide reasonable supports that provide equal access. Decisions are based on documentation, federal guidelines, and what is reasonable within the college setting." They then went on to state that we are currently reviewing the feedback we received from the recent campus survey to improve our services, and any additional information would help. I'm Quinn for BCN Weekly Report.
Thanks, Quinn. Lastly, Izzy went around campus and reported on icy conditions on campus.
The spring semester had a snowy start. Beginning the 24th, all Kentucky counties were under a winter storm warning, lasting until the 26th. Here's how that storm impacted campus operations. In an email sent out on January 23rd, ahead of the storm, President Cheryl Nixon announced for reduced operations on campus throughout the weekend, having only essential operations open, such as public safety and dining services. Due to the icy conditions, campus closed on Monday and Tuesday, holding no classes and again, only essential labor. Nixon sent an email to students, faculty, and staff on Tuesday detailing plans to reopen the campus on the following day, resuming in-person classes, and allowing instructors the option to hold classes via Zoom. However, students raised concerns of the icy conditions, and the Student Government Association emailed a few hours later addressing President Nixon and the college administration. In their email, the SGA raised concerns of student safety, citing the amount of ice and snow that had yet to be cleared and urging the college to offer alternate solutions to students who felt it was unsafe to travel. Many students also took to the community group on Facebook to express fear of walking to class. One student in the group referred to other surrounding schools, specifically Eastern Kentucky University, and their plans to remain virtual for the remainder of the week. We reached out to the president's office for a comment. Nixon responded saying, "The past week has asked a great deal of our campus community, and I deeply appreciate the patience, flexibility, and care you've shown for one another. I am grateful to all students as you've approached the week with understanding as we work to reopen campus. I'm also grateful to our faculty and staff, many of whom adapted quickly by holding classes online or working remotely." Further down in her response, she adds, "If icy conditions make it difficult to get to class or labor, I encourage students to communicate directly with faculty or supervisors to make appropriate arrangements or connect with classmates or TAs for notes. Mother Nature has certainly thrown us and many parts of the county a challenge. Berea has always been at its best when we care for one another as a community and rise to challenges together. And I am proud of how this community has done exactly that." For more information regarding the president's response, you can check out the email sent from her today titled Update on Federal Advocacy, Long-Term Planning, New Weather Guidelines. We also reached out to the facilities management, asking what preparations does facilities management take for this kind of weather. Shane Wilkerson, the Director of Facilities and Engineering, responded, detailing the process they take to prepare for winter weather, including stocking salt supplies, monitoring forecasts, the use of a designated priority route map, and clearing exits, entrance, and sidewalks as the storm nears its end. Wilkerson said during the most recent ice storm event, one of the primary challenges encountered was reduced staffing availability. While all facilities management employees are considered essential during inclement weather events, several staff members were unable to travel to campus due to hazardous conditions. In response to what students should keep in mind as more possible winter weather approaches, he added, "Students, please know that our goal during winter weather is 100% to keep campus open every day. Our snow removal maps provide a cleared path to get across campus, but because of priorities, that path may not always be your usual or shortest route. Safety is the second biggest priority." Going on to say, "Lastly, we had many students working in snow, ice, and extreme cold temperatures last week, and I want to sincerely thank each and every one of them. It was a tremendous help." For full responses, see the screenshots within the story. And as more possible winter weather approaches, BCNR hopes all students stay safe and warm. For BCN Weekly Report, I'm Izzy Spence.
Spectacular job, Izzy. On behalf of our news team, thank you for watching BCN Weekly News, and we hope you have a great rest of your night. I'm Jessica Powell. For more coverage, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at BC News and Radio, and watch our show online at www.bcnewsradio.com. Good night.
Live from BCNR's studio in Berea, Kentucky, this is BCN Weekly News.